And welcome to another edition of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. I'm your host, Chris Grosso. And for this episode, this guest needs no introduction, especially here in the North Jersey tri-state area where I live. Even as a Met fan, I'm a huge fan of this guy, huge fan of his work. One of the best in the business. He is the longtime play-by-play broadcaster for the New York Yankees, also the host of the Michael Kay Show on ESPN New York Radio 98.7. He's the great Michael Kay. And Kay, sir, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. How's everything going?
Great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. How you been these past few months? No baseball, no work. How have you been dealing with everything?
Well, there's been work. I mean, we're doing the radio show every day. Kind of kept my sanity. That's been cool. Been able to do it from my house, and Yes was really proactive, and ESPN was proactive. They saw this coming, and they put a camera in my house and a radio box and all that. So it's been great from 3 to 7. Take my mind off of everything going on in the world.
Yeah, I said no work. I, of course, was just referring to your duties with the Yankees. In regard to this season, what are you looking for in terms of storyline? I emailed you on Friday, said if you'd want to come on, preview the upcoming season. But now that I think about it, how do you go about analyzing, dissecting a 60-game season? Like, what are you looking for?
Well, you know what? It certainly makes it interesting because the beauty of a baseball season is a marathon. So this obviously turns into a sprint.
Yeah.
And you can't have injuries because 15 days on the injured list is missing 25% of the season, and that could completely blow any chance. You got to keep people healthy. You obviously have to keep them away from COVID-19, which is going to be easier said than done. And it's one of those rare seasons, Chris, where I think all 30 teams have at least a little chance to make the playoffs. Some seasons you go into, there's no way the Orioles are going to make the playoffs. Yeah. There's no way another team might make, but this year they could.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, maybe the Orioles go 32-28, like somehow sneak in or something like that. Yankees go 28-32. It's certainly unique in that regard. In regards to the 60-game season, there's been a lot of talk about this, but do you take that seriously? Do you think it's credible, legitimate when we look back on things?
Well, it's different. I don't think it's going to be the same as 162, but I don't think there should be an asterisk put next to it because I saw a quote today from Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Bucks. He said there should be, no lessening of this championship. He said this might be the hardest championship you win. So with everything going on in the world and all the protocols that are going to have to take place, and people are afraid too. There's going to be anxiety as well. If you could come out of a 60-game season and a regular length playoffs, I think a championship is a championship. I was saying early on, Chris, that maybe I would have called it something different than a World Series, but I think that whoever wins this year should take a lot of pride in it because it's not going to be easy.
In regards to how managers manage, how do you think that's going to play out? I certainly think it's going to be unique. As you were saying, it's like a 60-game sprint. What are you looking for there?
You know what? It's weird. Like, I've talked to a lot of friends about this, and we've tried to predict it. It's never happened before, so it's not like we have past knowledge to use as a predictor in this. But I will tell you this. Baseball has, over the years, become obsessed with load management, which is a word that's associated with Kawhi Leonard. You could have 3 good games in a row, and if it's time to rest, they rest you. And I've disagreed with it. I really have for a long time. This year, even more so. Now, the counter argument to that is, well, it's going to be 60 games in 66 days. You're not going to be able to play every single game. And I get that too. But if somebody's hot, I'm going to ride them because, if you could have a 7 or 8 game winning streak, Chris, you could win your division because of that. And if you have a 5 or 6 game losing streak, that could put you right behind the 8 ball. So I just think that at the beginning, managers are going to have to manage their bullpen well. I don't think that starting pitchers are going to be able to go more than 4 innings, 5 innings, because the 3-week spring training too is not going to allow them to stretch them out. I mean, there's so many variables to this that we don't know, but I just wouldn't rest as many people as they have in the past, and it's become a baseball thing. Because I just think, if you're in decent shape and you're young, you know what, you should be able to play 60 games.
No doubt. What about the added importance of each game? Like we're saying, it's a sprint. Do you think the players will feel that? They'll have more of a sense of urgency in each game. Just thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's going to fall mostly, Chris, on the manager. A lot of managers, if you win the first 3 games of a 4-game set, they might rest their players and say, we're playing with house's money. And I don't think there's such a thing as house's money. Because if you have a bad start to the season, you could be out of the playoffs. If you go 60 games and go 30-30, you might not make the playoffs. And if you look at last year, after 50 games, I think after 60 games, the Nationals would not have been in the playoffs, and they ended up winning the World Series. So a slow start is simply not acceptable because it could knock you out of the playoffs. So I think there's an added importance to each game, and that's how a manager has to manage it.
How about the biggest threat in the Yankees division? I would assume you'd probably say Rays, but just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, the Rays are good. Even if it was a 162-game season, I think they would have been a challenge. They've got good pitching. They certainly have a great bullpen. They know how to get funky with the openers. They were kind of the originators of that. They've got a deep lineup. They're a good team. They really are. So I don't think anybody in the East is going to run away from it. I don't think the Yankees are going to run away and win by 10 games, which would be a lot in a 60-game season. I think the Rays will be right there. The only thing that the East has going against it is it's going to play a real tough interleague schedule, and not as tough. Yeah, it's not as tough as other divisions. So you're going to be playing against the Mets. The Yankees, play 6 games against the Mets. The Mets are a good team. Then you play against the Braves and the Nationals and the Phillies, and it's a good division. And the advantage that the Rays have over the Yankees, the Rays have 6 games against the Marlins, and the Yankees have 6 games against the Mets. So those are the natural rivals, and that gives the Rays a big advantage.
Yeah, how about biggest key to the Yankee season? What are you looking at there?
Well, I think that on any team it's going to be help. That'll be the first one, but let's put that aside. I think they're bullpen, and I think that's why they should be favored to come out of the American League and go to the World Series, because their bullpen is really good. And over the first 20 games of the season, I think starters simply are not going to be able to give you more than 60, 70 pitches, which should be about 4 or 5 innings. So that means you're going to have to get 12 or 15 outs out of the bullpen, and the Yankees have the bullpen to do it. So I think that health is the most important, and bullpen early is going to be hugely important for most teams. And after 20 games, if you're sputtering, as I said, and it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but if you have a bad start to your season because your starters aren't going long, then you might have ruined your season.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like how I was going to bring it up before, but you kind of mentioned it, how imperative it is to get off to a fast start in this season. And just going back to players not playing in front of fans, how do you think that adjustment will go? What do you think that's going to be like, that experience?
I would say it's weird. Players always tell you that they don't hear the crowd, but they do. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just cliche, and I think that the crowd could carry you sometimes. And then there are other teams that it won't affect. I mean, Tampa Bay doesn't play in front of big crowds anyway. So I don't know how affected they'll be. The Yankees are used to playing in front of at least 40,000 every single game. It's going to be weird. And you know what's also going to be weird, Chris? Doing the games, we'll be doing the home games from Yankee Stadium. I'm sitting in one booth, John Sterling sitting in another, and the players are going to hear what you say.
You think?
I mean, if I scream "see ya," they're going to hear. If I criticize somebody, they're going to hear. That is going to be awkward and weird.
You think they'll hear you?
Oh, absolutely.
From the booth?
Yeah, I mean, because I talked to Gary Thorne and the Orioles a couple of years ago because of the riots in Baltimore.
Oh yeah, I remember that, the White Sox game.
Yeah, they played a game in front of an empty Camden Yards, and Adam Jones hit a double. Gary Thorne has a great booming voice.
Oh, he does.
And he called the double the way he calls the double, and Adam Jones was on second base and yelled up at Thorne, "Hey, shut up! We can hear you." So.
That's a good story.
Players are going to hear us. Believe me, they are going to hear us, which is going to be odd. And, for a second I thought about, the booth that I'm in, I think you could close the windows.
Yeah.
But I don't want to close the windows because it's healthier to be out in the air during this time. So if you let the air circulating through the vent system, that becomes a little bit of a challenge. So I'd rather have the players hear me than be more susceptible to getting sick. So I'm going to keep the windows open.
Good thinking. Yeah. Just putting health first.
I want to live.
Of course. Yeah. And how do you, going back to not having fans in the park, like how do you envision having that big call, a walk-off home run or something at Yankee Stadium. Do you think it'll be maybe tougher to get up for that and have that big call?
It's a good question. I was asked it once before, and I really never build my call on the crowd. I just build my call on the moment. Like if it's a big moment, I get excited. I don't let the fans excite me, if that makes sense. What's going to be strange and a little bit of an adjustment in TV, when you make a big call, like if there's a walk-off home run, you got to make your call and get out and let the crowd take over and let all the pictures take over. Well, there's no crowd to take over, and I guess the pictures are going to be weird because the players are not going to be able to hug and celebrate and stuff like that.
I forgot about that.
So that's going to be odd. That will be a little bit of a challenge. When do you start to talk again after you lay out? But in terms of like the excitement of the call, I don't think, Chris, that it'll affect me. But I've never done it before, so it might. I'm just assuming that I'll ride the crest of the importance of the call rather than the sound of the crowd.
No doubt. And you said for road games, you're going to be doing that in the studio?
Yeah, that's the plan right now. So our studios are in Connecticut, and let's say me and David Cohn do the game. We'll sit in a studio 10 feet apart, and there'll be like one cameraman in the studio, and we'll watch the game from the monitor because I don't think MLB wants more people traveling. So I don't think most. I think every single broadcast team will be doing road games from home.
How is that experience going to go? I mean, it's got to be even way different than not being in the ballpark without fans.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I mean, because there are a lot of TV announcers that work off the monitor. I work off the field. I like to see the whole thing develop in front of me because the monitor just shows a certain thing. There's only so much it could show. It doesn't show you the whole field. So I like to look at the whole field. So that's gonna be a little difficult. You can't read the ball off the bat that well off the screen. Something that might look like a home run watching the screen. You can watch the outfielders at a ballpark and tell that it's not going out. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it's a challenge that everybody has to go through. And, I think that it might be the new way of the world for a while until people get comfortable traveling again.
Yeah, it's crazy these times we're living in. And switching gears here, want to talk about your other duties, other jobs you have. Centerstage, great show. Curious.
Thanks.
Who's your favorite interview you've ever had?
Larry David.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I didn't know him when he came on the show, and we've since become friends, which is great. He's just as you would imagine him, but he's not as mean as he is in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but he is honest and tells you what he thinks, but he doesn't look to hurt your feelings like the Larry David and Curb. But it's been a pleasure getting to know somebody like that, and he's probably the best interview.
See, I gotta disagree. I'm not a big Seinfeld guy, and I think.
So you're the one.
I'm the one. What?
You're the one person in the world that's not a big Seinfeld guy.
Well, no, don't get me wrong. It's funny as hell, but I kind of just had a different perspective lately. I think the whole premise is not realistic for 30-something, 40-something-year-old single people. Just don't have any other friends, don't seem very motivated. Their personality characteristics are very negative, neurotic, insecurity, things like that. I don't know. That's my mindset on it.
Well, I mean, a lot of sitcoms, you almost have to suspend reality. I mean, The Big Bang Theory, would Leonard really go out with Penny? I mean, so
I never watched it actually.
Okay, so have you seen King of Queens?
I haven't either.
Do you watch TV?
What do I watch? I'm watching Sopranos right now. I'm binge watching that.
Well, that's great.
With the
but I
quarantine.
mean, I'm just saying that with sitcoms, you see these, grotesque-looking men with beautiful women. That doesn't happen in real life, so you have to kind of suspend reality.
I guess. I'm a Friends guy though. I think Friends is.
I love Friends,
You're a
but
Friends guy?
I mean, listen, Chris. Let's be honest with each other. That's one of my favorite shows. Would Rachel ever really date Ross? Come on.
Yeah, dude, Ross is good looking. He's got a great.
He's kind of
personality.
doofy though.
Yeah,
He's kind of doofy.
a little, but I could see it.
There's no way Ross ends up with Rachel in real life. No way.
I gotta disagree
But I
with you
love the
there.
show. I love it, and the arc of that was what brought you right to the end of the show, and you wanted to see them end up together. You had something invested in them, but I just think he was too goofy to end up with Rachel. But other people disagree.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big Ross guy, so I gotta disagree with you there. But fun little debate there. And Michael, I know you got to run. I know you got your ESPN show to do in a couple minutes. But again, just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. Just talk a little baseball with the season upcoming, and yeah, just best of luck with the season, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. This was fun.
All right, take care, Michael.
You got it.
All right, bye-bye. And that'll conclude things on this edition of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. And I know it was a brief episode, but still want to thank Michael again so much for coming on and shedding a little light on the season and giving his thoughts on it, despite it only being a 60-game season. And as always, you can follow me on social channels. My personal Twitter, Instagram is at ChrisGrosso16. The podcast Instagram is at Basic Thoughts Pod, and the Twitter account, it's at Basic Thought Pod. No S on the end of thoughts, just thought. So want to thank you guys again so much for listening. Hope you have a great 4th of July weekend, and not sure what we're doing for the next episode. Hopefully another good guest, and I'll let you guys know. And like I said, have a good weekend and take care.